back. This is Eeshani, and you're watching IB Professional School YouTube video. This is a continuation of the videos which have been already posted on Excel VBA. And today we are going to talk about something called as input and message box. So let's get started. So what is an input box? What is a message box? An input box basically is a function of VBA which helps us to get the input from the user. It helps to get input from user. Now, why would we require a certain input? Let's say we have a data set and we want to get the criteria from the user in order to do a filtering process in Excel data, then we might use an input box. Or if there are any criteria or conditions that we are using for any of the databases functions or a VLOOKUP, then we can also use an input box. So input box is a function which helps us to get the input from the user. Now, once we process the data in Excel, we might want to show an output to the user. Most of the time, when you're talking about the automation processes in Excel, we are going to show the output in the Excel sheet itself. But yes, once in a while, it may be that we want to show as a pop-up to our end user. And that's where the message box comes into play. So this displays the output. Now, just let's quickly go through the syntax of input box, message box in today's video, so that you can start working with it. So like we discussed last time, we are going to start our programs with the sub, and I'm going to name it today as input underscore message box. And first thing, as discussed in the previous videos, the very important thing that you have to do before we start using the variables is to declare the variable. So I'm going to declare a variable dim, let's say marks, as an integer. Now, I want to ask the user to enter the marks. So how do I do that? Since a user is going to give me an input, I need to store it to be able to use it in the future. So this variable is going to be the entity which will store the input from the user. So I'll write marks equal to input box and bracket start. Now you see the syntax at the bottom. It says prompt. Prompt will help the user to understand what exactly needs to be typed in the input box. And like you can see, it's not an optional thing. It is mandatory for you to put this syntax. Then comes the title, default, X position, Y position, which are all optional for you to use. We are going to start with the prompt and say, enter the marks. Now, typically, prompt that you're using is going to be a text, and text, like in Excel, in VBA, also needs to be in double quotes. So, marks is equal to input box, enter the marks. Now, I want to run this program. We have not done that in the previous video. So, how do you run the program? In order to run the program, again, we have a shortcut key, which is F5. Or if you look on the top over here, there's a play button, which you can click on and then run the program. So typically in VBA, we really don't have to select the program in order to run it. If your cursor is in a particular program, then it runs automatically. So let's run it. And this is what an input box looks like. So we have enter the marks, which is the prompt. And over here, the person can enter the marks, click OK, and there you go. Now this marks variable has the value of 60 stored in it. But how do we display it? So now we are going to use message box. So the syntax is message box, and in front, if you see, again, prompt is the only part which is mandatory. Rest everything is optional. So we work with prompt and we will say marks obtained is ampersand to join the text and the value of the variable that I'm getting as marks. So now if I run the program once again, enter the marks, let's put 90 and OK. This is what a message box looks like. Now marks obtained is with the colon sign was the text, and I wanted to put a variable in front of it so that whatever is the value of the variable that shows up in my text box. So over here, message marks obtained is, and then the marks, the variable, so that if I give 90, it shows up at 90. If I give it as 60, it will show up as 60. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you are able to use input box and message box in your program. Stay tuned for more videos on Excel VBA. Thank you.